Yo, today I wanna talk about the third Kazekage, the strongest Kage in Sunagakure history and probably the strongest character Sunagakure had ever seen, at least in the Naruto timeline. In Boruto it probably is Gaara, but yeah. The third Kazekage is a really special character to me because I started to love him from the beginning, even though he was just a puppet from Sasori. But it could be the case that it was exactly because of that since Sasori was also one of my favorite characters. And believe me, it's not a cool thing to be a fan of the third Kazekage. I mean, he's one of my favorite characters, but we never saw him alive. The most alive we saw him was maybe as a soul or as a Edo Tensei. But the thing is, the only appearances he had was as a statue, as one of the Sunagakure Kages, as one of the Kazekages, as a puppet from Sasori, where his body was more or less still intact, but his soul wasn't there at all. We saw him as a Edo Tensei from Orochimaru, where his soul was there, but in a body from a stranger. And then we got to see him at the end, after Kaguya was defeated when Hagoromo summoned all of the Kage's souls into the real world to summon Naruto and go back. So we never really saw him real alive, and we didn't get much screen time of him generally. But we learned a lot about him, and that's what I wanna talk about in this video. So first of all, as I already said, he was known as the strongest Kazekage in the history of Sunagakure, and by that, likely the strongest character generally in Sunagakure. And he had something like a Hashirama status in Sunagakure. He was the Sunagakure's Hashirama, if you wanna say it like that. That's the comparison I always drew between them. He was known as the strongest, nobody could believe that he got defeated by any means. That's why even though we had some Kazekages after him, Rasa and Gaara, people were still searching for him. And his death also led to the Third Shinobi World War, where Sunagakure wasn't at a high power level anymore, because the strongest of this village was just away for no reason. And nobody could even imagine that he was killed. So that's why years afterwards he was still searched for. That just shows how strong he was, that nobody could even believe by any means that he was dead. But as we all know, he got defeated and killed by Sasori, who made him into a human puppet. And what's interesting about it is that if we go by the anime, that Sasori didn't defeat the third Kazekage by normal means, not in a fair fight or something like that, which makes sense why Sasori is like the poisoning trickster, if you wanna call him like that. Because when Orochimaru resurrected him with the Edo Tensei against Sasori and Deidara, the third Kazekage was still pretty clear that he could defeat Sasori by any means, even though he saw his own body being used by Sasori, which was also a thing that pissed him off completely. He doesn't like to be used by anyone, he stands for himself, and he was even able to free himself of the Edo Tensei Orochimaru used on him, which is something we saw in the future only Hashirama doing. Or, well, he didn't do it, but he would be able to do it, like Orochimaru said himself. So that's another comparison that I can draw between those two. But that doesn't mean that the third Kazekage is on Hashirama's level. That's likely not the case at all. After the third Kazekage freed himself of the Edo Tensei and of the control of Orochimaru and, well, went back to the afterlife, Orochimaru stated that his Edo Tensei probably wasn't perfected at that time, and this could be the reason why it got better afterwards. Because as we know, the Edo Tensei that Orochimaru used at the end had Hashirama cells infused in it. So it could work better with it. And that's likely not the case at this point of the story, which is why the third Kazekage definitely had it easier to break out of this jutsu. But it's still a great feat. And what made the third Kazekage the strongest Kage in Sunagakure was his Iron Sand. It's just because of this jutsu that he was known as the strongest. And that jutsu was created by the third Kazekage by studying one of the previous Jinchurikis of Shukaku. He studied Shukaku's power, why Shukaku could control sand and stuff like that, and made a use of his own Gekkei Genkai that he had with the magnet release to mix it with the Iron Sand and make the strongest weapon in the history of Sunagakure, how Granny Chiyo called it. And what's also insane to think of is that when he was in the Edo Tensei state by Orochimaru and was fighting against his puppet version from Sasori, they were a pretty good matchup. It didn't seem like one of those Iron Sand attacks were overpowering the other one, but you have to think about it that the first Kazekage was probably weakened a lot because he was resurrected by a not perfect Edo Tensei, which is a pretty big deal if you think back about how strong Hashirama and Tobirama were against Hiruzen at the Konoha Crush arc, which happened after this point. So we weren't even able to see how strong the third Kazekage could really get, which is a bit sad. I would love to have him at a 4th grade Shinobi War. I mean, I would love to even have his name. I mean, in the 4th data book, we have a little series of the Kazekages, where it starts with the first Kazekage, then it goes to the second Kazekage, and well, it goes directly to the 4th Kazekage, and then the 5th. Thanks for nothing. He's one of the 2 Kages we don't know the name of. The other one is the third Mizukage, and I don't like how they get disrespected like that. The third Mizukage even more, because we don't know anything of him. But we got to see him alive. That's something the third Kazekage could never show us. Oh, come on. But yeah, I love this design. I love the Iron Sand so fucking much. When Sasori pulled him out after he was being teased so strongly as the strongest Inzunagakure, the strongest Kazekage we ever had, that his disappearance led to the third Shinobi World War, and that he was used by Sasori, which was, as I said, one of my favorite characters. All of that made him one of my favorite characters, and I have a bond to him that I can't really explain, or I can't really give good reasons for that. It just be like that, and I'm happy that we have this character. Even though I'm sad that we don't have much about him. We never got to experience the real third Kazekage greatness, which is damn sad. But I love that we have people like Shinki right now in the Boruto era, whose main fighting set is the Iron Sand, which already makes him one of the strongest in Sunagakure, what's insane. A little interesting thing I wanna add is that we got a little flashback in Boruto when we got to Garaga. That was the giant snake that Boruto could summon from the Ryuchi cave. And in a flashback, Garaga was with someone that really looked like the third Kazekage. I mean, it probably wasn't, because there are tiny differences in the design, like the eyebrows, but the thing is, they were the sandy country, if you wanna say it like that, and so they were the castle where everything around it was made by sand, and that Shinobi could also use the lightning release, which is an element that the third Kazekage also had, because it's one of the things you need for the magnet release. But yeah, that probably wasn't the third Kazekage. It's just something that always sat on my mind, but yeah, I just wanted to talk that out loud. Tell me in the comments below what you think about the third Kazekage. Do you like him too? Did you enjoy him? Or was he just nothing more than a puppet that you saw and didn't care about, or something like that? Which is also a sad thing. We always saw him getting used for anything, which is something he hated to do. That's such a sad life. Even though he didn't have a life from our perspective. God damn. But yeah, that's it with the video. I hope everything was understandable enough. I hope I could talk enough about him. I just felt like talking about one of my favorite characters here, and I probably will do it in the future with other characters as well, because there are a lot of characters, especially in Naruto, but also in other series, that I love so fucking much that literally nobody cares about, which is sad. But yeah, you can expect videos like that in the future more often. And if you wanna see a video about another special character, just write it down in the comments below. I could make a video about it. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and dislike if you didn't. Write everything in the comments you like to say about this video. That's it. Take care of yourself, and see you on the next video.